Ridley Scott's name is back out there again in the movie talk world since his newest movie, Gladiator 2, just released, and I thought after seeing that movie, why not go and watch arguably my favorite film of his for the 78th time with The Martian. I think it's also his best film. Hot take for some, given people believe many of his other films are better. But for me, there's something truly incredible about The Martian that I want to talk about so badly here today. In this video, I am going to explain how it is his best film and a true masterpiece of science fiction. So why do I believe that this movie is a masterpiece? Well, for one, I find that a lot of this is due in part to the fact that I would say that The Martian is arguably also one of the most re-watchable films ever made. Take aside the fact that I just said that it's one of the best and nominated for many Oscars, including Best Picture, there is something truly incredible about how this movie is made with where it defines its replayability on multiple watches. I exaggerated there in my intro when I said I've seen it 78 times, but I won't be lying to you when I say that I have seen it in an insane amount. Movies that are guilty pleasures often find themselves being the ones that people relay the idea of rewatching over and over to, but The Martian is no guilty pleasure. It is a true and authentic science fiction thriller that puts you in the story of all these characters and makes you feel every single ounce of it. I think this mainly is due to the fact that Ridley Scott is the director, of course, but then I'd also give massive credit to Drew Goddard, who is the writer, and then Pietro Scalia, who is the editor. Pietro has edited films from really good to not so good, but the thing that stands out the most in his filmography is that he has edited some of Ridley Scott's best. Films like The Martian, the original Gladiator, Black Hawk Down, and then even one like Prometheus, which I know it was a divisive film for some, but I personally really like Prometheus. For me, when it comes to editing, I find that some of the best edited films ever are ones that keep your attention, but also really hone your attention on everything going on that is important. Films can sometimes get too clever with their editing, and it becomes a distraction. But that is not the case here with The Martian. The Martian is just clever enough with its editing, which is where we get to the idea again of talking about what it means to have good replayability. I'm sure some people have heard this claim already, that The Martian is essentially a nerdgasm for people who are really into this level of science fiction that explores the actual science behind how so many things work with regards to space travel, physics, chemistry, and then of course our main character's area of expertise, which is botany. The attention to detail in every scene that relates to these matters of science is so beautifully done. It doesn't feel like there is one scene, at least within the regular cut of the film, that is unnecessary. That is another great lesson with regards to good editing in film. If you feel like a lot of the scenes in your own movie are important and are needed and don't feel like filler, then you have done a good job putting it all together. This now brings us back to talking about the writing, which, as I just said, was done by Drew Goddard. Drew Goddard is a name that I imagine a lot of casual moviegoers might not know, but mainly people who are in this business will know a great deal of. He's written films such as the original Cloverfield film, The Cabin in the Woods, World War Z, and then one of my favorite all-time television shows in the Daredevil series from Netflix. I've watched all of these, and I can tell you for a fact that the thing that stands out about the screenplay for all four of these projects is that they are very entertaining through their writing. When you look at The Martian specifically, Drew had the task of adapting a book, might I add, that I have still yet to read, but I've heard great things about. I've also heard that he did a good job adapting it and almost added to it in a way that makes the book even better. The movie version is very much a character study through and through. There's no denying that. It takes you through the mind and process of all these characters that we follow and really getting you attached to them, along with the underdog story of our main character Mark Watney, played by Matt Damon. Drew Goddard's screenplay is so detailed to take you through every step of his journey and make it feel like it matters. It doesn't matter if it's the highs that Watney faces where he actually is able to get things fixed and on track for him to survive on this planet all alone, or if it's the downs and conflicts that he has where something just happens to go wrong and now he finds himself in a really desperate situation for his survival. And what makes the screenplay so good is that it doesn't just take you on that journey with him as the main guy who's suffering through it, but he's also taking you through the journey of all the other characters who have to witness it all themselves as they try to help Watney and get him back safe and sound to Earth. It doesn't matter if it's Jeff Daniels as the director of NASA, who can come off as wanting to do the right thing in making the decisions around bringing Mark back, but at the cost of how bad that would look on him as director of NASA if it didn't go right. Sean Bean as the flight director for the astronauts, who is always putting them first before anything else, and sometimes that gets him in hot water. To even the other side characters played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, Kristen Wiig, Mackenzie Davis, Benedict Wong, and Donald Glover in all their respective roles as people working for NASA. All of them have a purpose to the goal of bringing Mark back home, and I love that not one of these characters is left out. Everyone has a purpose and a good amount of screen time. The same goes for the astronauts themselves, played by Kate Mara, Sebastian Stan, Michael Peña, Jessica Chastain, and Aksel Hennie. Those characters knew what was at stake as well for what their job and their mission was. Their story is a human story too. They know that they had to defy the orders of NASA in order to bring Mark back, but that wasn't what mattered to them. What mattered to them was recognizing that they left their friend alone on another planet, and bringing him back was all that mattered. Again, I harp on that idea of the movie being a character study, but it's also just a really good underdog story. Not everything is going to be roses and sunshine for the main character. He's got to be able to feel loss in order to get him in a better place to accomplish his goal of getting off Mars. He went through enough for just one person in their life to experience, and so there's enough weight there in the emotion that you will feel for him by the time that you get to the end of the film and you actually do see him get off Mars and reunite with his astronaut friends. And again, I bring back around this notion of what the movie focuses on. It wants to take you through every single step of the process that Mark has to go through in order to accomplish his goal. The script just feels like it was written by a scientist. That's how much research and detail that Drew put within his screenplay, and I think that was a smart idea. I also love that Drew added in some comedy bits as well. It makes Watney come off as a very relatable person, which gets you more attached to him. Sometimes, even the worst of situations needs some comedy to them, especially with how Mark failed in instances and needed to get himself back up. You can't really feel for the character in his specific scenario if you don't understand what he's doing himself. Drew Goddard could easily have made a screenplay that was just filled with dialogue that would have come off as pretentious in its scientific manner, but he made sure to put in enough with what the conflict was that it made you more interested in those many scenes of following Mark Watney's process. I do hope you all enjoyed that breakdown of the writing and the editing, because more times than you think, these areas of filmmaking with regards to a movie don't often get talked about that much. Most of the time, you usually hear these kinds of discussions around the directors and the actors, and then yes, sometimes the writers will factor into the discussion depending on who it is. Don't get me wrong, I would not blame anyone if they only ever thought of Matt Damon within this movie. After all, he was nominated for his performance, and deservingly so. But with this film, I don't think I've ever heard that many people really talk about the editor as someone that was truly great for what he did on this film. It was important that I mentioned those two things up front, because now I do want to actually talk about Ridley Scott as the director for this movie. Everyone who knows Ridley Scott knows that he is probably one of the greatest directors ever when it comes to his love for the production design elements of movie making. Most famous directors that you know the name of, you would probably consider them to be one of the all-time greats because of how good they are when it comes to directing actors. But Ridley Scott is one of those rare instances where he truly cares about those technical elements and how they craft great films. He's very much like James Cameron in that way, and James Cameron is probably the most well-known example of that. Ridley has made some of the best when it comes to that kind of stuff when he started doing this back in the original Alien in 1979, and I think that The Martian should be added to that list because this movie is truly beautiful and does great work to make it feel lived in. Everything from the mountain ranges and landscapes of Mars that were well crafted through green screen elements, but also the usage of real location shooting. Even the more scientific areas of the production design through the locations of the HAB on Mars, which is Mark's lab and base of operations, to the Hermes spacecraft, which is how the astronauts travel from Earth to Mars, to even the locations on Earth itself, where we follow those other side characters in their efforts to communicate with Mark and get him back safely. All of it is just really fascinating and cool to look at, and that's something something that you really have to do a good job with, or else nothing is going to come off as appealing. It is the filmmaker's job to make sure that what they are making is going to entice the audience and make them connected to it. I think that really understands that quite well with the technical elements of his films. He understands how and what people would get attached to, and for that reason, that is why we consider him one of the all-time greats. A technical element, by the way, as a side note that I haven't spoken to yet, is the musical score. It was done by Harry Gregson Williams, who has done the music for a lot of films that you would recognize. There is nothing more I love in a movie than a great musical score. As someone who grew up around music, playing in band for school, I've always looked to the scores of movies as one of the most important things that a film can have to really get people interested and attached. The Martian truly has a great science fiction and space-like score. It's nowhere near close to my all-time favorite movie's music, which is Interstellar, but for a movie that revolves around space and science fiction, it is perfect. The best musical scores are ones that you feel like pertain to the scenarios and genres for the subject matter of your movie. When I think of good space music, I think of movies like Interstellar and The Martian. Again, this is where we harp on the idea that so much of this movie is authentic, and what makes for it being a masterpiece, one of the all-time great science fiction films, and personally, for me, what I believe is Ridley Scott's best that he has ever made. So there you have it. That's my film analysis of Ridley Scott's The Martian. What do you all think? Leave your comments down below on what you think about my commentary of the movie, and let's have a nice and respectful conversation. Thank you all for stopping by my channel. If you want to see more moving forward from me with regards to film and television, and you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe if you are new here, and turn on that notification bell. I'm trying to build a community on here, and your support would be greatly appreciated. That's a wrap, folks. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you all soon for the next video.